One. Hello, everybody. It is a Wednesday. That means only one thing. It's time now for Supernatural News and Parashare. And we have your Parashares today, folks. So it is going to be a full program. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Right over there, I reach across the Midwest. I put out my hand in peace, mainly because of a huge defeat this past Sunday that we could talk about. We don't have to necessarily, but I reach across to Michigan, across the borders, to the co-hostess with the mostest, the mistress of the Midwest, in rambling defeat. There she is, ladies and gentlemen, Mallie Fox. How you doing, Mallie?
I'm good. Hey, that game. Wow. Can I
Yeah,
just tell you, in my household, you'd hear, let's go.
I
Every
bet
time
you
we got
did.
touchdown.
I could talk for days about that game and
Yeah.
certain things, and especially why Sam Darnold regressed to a 3-year-old. But I digress. My grandmother can throw better, and she's dead. I'll just put it that way.
Rest in peace, Grandma.
Yes, rest in peace, Grandma. Probably watching down right now, going, "That was a horrible joke."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, although Dan Campbell did say it to Kevin O'Connell after the game, we'll see in 2 weeks. So,
Yeah.
although I doubt that, I highly doubt that at this point. I think the Rams will have the Vikes number. Although I did make the prediction, and people are going to remind me of this because I was feeling pretty good about the Vikings
hmm
before Sunday. I did make one of my 5 predictions that the Vikings would make the Super Bowl. So I might have to pull that one out of the 5. They really looked like world beaters up until Sunday.
hmm
I don't know what happened to them. They absolutely fell apart. Well, I don't get psychology like that, Mallie. I don't. When you're on a roll like that, I don't.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe they just get like, cocky,
I don't know that
so
it's
they make more mistakes.
I don't know that it's cocky. I think for maybe for Sam Darnold it's excitement or it's fear of failure. It could be either one because he has failed in so many places.
Mm-hmm.
This is I just don't want to screw up. And he literally screws up. Like his worst nightmare comes to fruition,
hmm
right? Um and psychology is an interesting I if I wouldn't have done this for a living, I probably would have been a psychologist because the human brain fascinates me and
Right.
human behavior fascinates me to no end. Um, but really, in sports psychology, I think fascinates me too.
hmm
Just to see how people perform under pressure.
Right. I would think I would probably psych myself out.
Yeah,
hmm
I I've had moments too where especially when I'm golfing,
hmm
oh, I'm the worst because I know I'm gonna screw it up. I know I'm gonna screw it up. And I do everything I can to try and untense and relax.
hmm
I tell myself there's nothing at stake here. I'm not a professional. It doesn't matter. There's nothing, and every single time I'll duff a shot when it matters.
That's me with bowling.
Right. When I'm bowling with friends and I have to absolutely hit a shot, I'll duff it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
That's why I did not do well with the zombie bowling league that we were
Yes.
on. I
Yeah.
sucked.
I could be
I
me.
think we won because the handicap was so high because I sucked so
Right.
bad.
Right. Right. I could be mediocre when no one was looking. I could be mediocre, and when I had to turn it on, I would just suck.
hmm
And, and there's just no explanation for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, none. I was never a great bowler. My grandparents, oh my gosh, were they great bowlers? They were in a
Well, that's
bowling
what they
alley.
used to do back in the day. I mean, what do you do? Well, let's go bowling. We're in a league because that's our social life.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I could hit the hell out of a baseball, and I played football when I was younger, and as a decent lineman, as a really good defensive lineman. But
hmm
I just I don't know. I just don't. But I didn't have the size. When you're all at 5'10" and in a bowling
hmm
ball, there's bigger, stronger, faster guys out there. So, and I had a little bit of hip surgery when I was 14, so that kind of
Ouch.
ended things. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not too mobile. when that happens. So here I am. You get me. But yeah, sports psychology is some of the more fascinating psychology. People say, well, it's a meathead sport. There's not much to it. There's more to it
That's
than
not true. Yeah.
there's more to it than you think. Um, and just how people show up at big moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not life or death. No one's dying over the thing, but it's the pressure we put on ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
to make or break ourselves and stress that we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how we get through it.
Right.
And you wouldn't believe how some people get through with flying colors and other people just crumble and how they crumble.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. With that, we're going to find out how some people crumble today, as a matter of fact, in supernatural news, and how some people excel. And that's one of these interesting themes that's going to run through today's show. We're back to full strength this week with both Mallie and Jess. Jess was up at the Palmer house this past week, and she did a little ghost hunting. She has a ghost hunting hangover this week. She told us herself yesterday. Um, the beginning of this year has already started off a little tumultuously already
Mm-hmm.
with some attacks in New Orleans and in Las Vegas. We already have a drone crisis,
Mm-hmm.
as it's been called, up on Capitol Hill. We'll start it off with that today, Mallie. The drone crisis is just the beginning, as an expert warns that there's a big announcement due in 30 days. 30 days. Interesting. The drone crisis in New Jersey shows no signs of stopping, and a lead figure in the UFO community has warned that in the next 30 days or so, there will be a huge announcement. Now, I should tell you that this expert that came out has already gotten a ton of backlash,
Okay.
including from a friend of ours who runs a huge website, who's kind of poo-pooed all over it, if I can use that strong language.
Mm-hmm.
Strong language. The drone crisis that's been causing a stir across the eastern U.S. shows no signs of abating. Hundreds of mysterious drones have been sighted in the skies recently, mainly over New Jersey, but also reaching as far as New York and Connecticut. Despite officials' attempts to reassure the public that these unidentified objects pose no threat to national security, their unknown origins continue to fuel wild speculation. Some suggest they're on the hunt for nuclear warheads, while others believe they could be the property of foreign superpowers. More ominously, some observers reckon this wave of sightings is just the tip of the iceberg, with something major expected within the next few weeks. Now, UFO expert Dr. Stephen Greer has suggested that these strange lights seen worldwide are part of a staged operation designed to trick the public into believing an alien invasion is imminent. Speaking to Newsmax's Rob Finnerty, Dr. Greer predicted that the situation will escalate in the next 30 days or so. He believes the supposed alien invasion is a cover-up to hide the real truth about extraterrestrial encounters, which he alleges have been happening for several decades. According to him, alien technology has fallen into the hands of U.S. weapons manufacturers who have initiated an operation to keep the conspiracy under wraps. He asserts, we have a team of about 6 black sites that have been running illegal projects related to so-called UAPs and UFOs. Coming forward in the next 30 days or so, they will bring forth positive evidence of this and the fact that these programs have been run illegally and outside of constitutional oversight. It is quite the bold statement, one that aligns with various commentators' forecasts that by early 2025, there will be a significant shift in how the public is informed about UFOs. Ross Coulthart, who's become synonymous with the UFO disclosure campaign, has predicted that all hell is going to break loose soon as the new year ticks in, calling it the calm before the storm. Despite the buzz, the enigmatic drones remain an unsolved riddle. U.S. government honchos confess their ignorance regarding who controls the supposed drones, while simultaneously assuring that there's no risk at play. Coupled with President-elect Donald Trump's revealing that the U.S. government has deep insights into the drone debacle. It seems clear that regardless of what reality holds, incoming 2025 promises to be one heck of a roller coaster for enthusiasts and skeptics alike. Now, Stephen Greer goes on to the podcast that both Dana Carvey and David Spade have.
Mm-hmm.
Carvey and Spade absolutely gush all over him. They talk about, oh, Dr. Stephen Greer, what a genius. Oh my gosh. He knows so much, blah, 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 blah. Our good friend over at theblackvault.com goes on and lambastes him on X. Absolutely torches him. And you should have seen, Mallie, the thread that lines up. It was probably a mile long of people going after Dr. Stephen Greer, calling him a charlatan, a fake, a fraud. Is he going to fake a UFO landing now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I must have sat and read for about 45 minutes, read the thread going after Dr. Stephen Greer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like people to weigh in what their opinion of this is. Email me, tim@darknessradio.com, about what your opinion about Dr. Stephen Greer is, because I've had people say to me, Tim, get Dr. Greer on the program. Now I have an in to get him on the program.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get him back on the program. He's been on this program before. I've interviewed him about different movies he's put out. But I'm getting the feeling that from real ufologists and people who really have skin in the game as far as UFOs, I don't know that they want to hear from Dr. Greer. I think they think he's not on the inside. I think they think he's kind of full of it.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they want their information from him. So I'm kind of curious what our audience thinks. What do you think, Mel?
You know, if his shine has kind of dulled, maybe not have him on, but it would be a good debate if he's willing to, show evidence on why he believes what he believes or what he says to support it. I mean, I don't know.
It's
I mean, if he goes on the show knowing that you're not going to be kissing his butt, that you might be, not arguing with him, but bringing up other points.
sure. Yeah, a good back and forth is fine.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's healthy discussion's always good.
Yeah. You're not roasting him. You're just
Right.
maybe disagreeing on some things.
Right. Right. And you're right about that. It's always good to go back and forth and have a good back and forth between everyone. I'm just kind of getting a look at, if you ever want a good read, if you've got a lot of time, of course, theblackvault.com is the spot for Freedom of Information Act documents. And I mean, if you want to talk about the quintessential spot to find any and everything you want to find about whatever's going on within as far as documents within the government, and anything that could be, let's just say, hidden within our government, then you're going to get exactly what you're looking for at theblackvault.com. Now, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It had to have been 2017. It's been a while since we've had the founder of the blackvault.com on our show. And I have to get him back. I keep pushing him to come back on.
Mm-hmm.
He's elusive to get on because he's so busy. And he has his own podcast, of course, that is hosted on the blackvault.com. But I'm trying, folks. I'm trying to get him back on. And we'll of course work on that. We'll work on getting him back on, because he's one of those guys who we'll put it this way. When you get him on, the rabbit hole is deep, right? There's so much to talk about, and you have to narrow the scope of what it is that you want to talk about. And I mean, you could start with drones, and you could work your way down to UFOs, and you could go to disclosure, and then you could bounce around, and you could go here, there, and everywhere. And eventually, you're going to end up with probably 37 topics on your plate and not get deep on anything, or you can focus on 3 things, and you can get 37 documents that he can cite, and he can tell you, well, just go to the website, and you'll find what it is you're looking for. I wanted to cite just real quick. As I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, I wanted to cite just one or two things that was on this thread, if I can get to it here. That's if I can get to it here. And I don't think I'm going to by the time that in the small bit of time that we have here. You know what? I'll just skip it. But I'll encourage you to the Black Vault on X, look it up. Follow the thread yourself where he mentions, and the way he goes about it is he says this. He says something about, 30 days, just wait for 30 days. I'm sure you'll learn all. And he kind of goes after Dr. Stephen Greer that way. And everybody starts to mention Dr. Stephen Greer underneath, and you see Stephen Greer's name come out. Let's just say it's pretty brutal. And it caught my eye as I go to X to post promos for the show. And it kind of caught my eye as it came out. John Greenwald Jr. is the host of blackvault.com. If you look up at blackvault.com, it'll come up. And as a matter of fact, the tweet, it used to be called the tweet, that he came out with 39 minutes ago is a explosive one about what was discussed when a Canadian MP met with U.S. UFO whistleblower David Grush to talk UAPs. I mean, it says newly released documents reveal some answers, but the heavy red actions raise even more questions. He's got some fascinating, explosive stuff over there at the blackvault.com. But he puts no weight whatsoever in Dr. Stephen Greer. He just thinks Greer is giving everybody the runaround. Which, by the way, we're going to try and get John back on the show. We have to get John back on the show in 2025 because there's just so much there, Mel. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous how much John is holding on to. And John told the story, and I'll wrap up with this, and we'll move on to our next story. John told the story once of having to get United States documents out of Canada and how easy it was. His story was this, that the U.S. was storing documents at I believe it was a military installation in Canada. And he said, I need to know if you have this document. And he gave the document number, and they were like, yeah, we got the document. And he goes, what can I do to get a copy of it? And they said, oh, you got a visa? In other words, do you have a visa number?
Right.
And he said, yeah, I got a visa number. He goes, yeah, I can mail you a copy. That's as simple as it was.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. government didn't count on anybody asking the Canadian government if they stored the files up in a different country for copies of a top secret document. They didn't figure anybody would check Canada. That's how thorough John is.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up getting, I think it had to pertain to UFO files.
Okay.
So, I mean, John goes above and beyond to get certain files. Put it there. So, all right, our next story. Close Encounters of the Weird Kind, some truly bizarre accounts of alien abductions. Now, this particular article, I'm just going to go into part of this for time's sake, and then I'm going to post the rest of it so that you can read it for yourself online. This comes from Mysterious Universe. And it says that one area of the UFO phenomena that has managed to capture both intrigue and raise eyebrows is that of alien abductions, which I don't know about you, Mallie, but it scares the heck out of me. I'm not going to lie. There have long been reports of people who have, for whatever reasons, been whisked aboard supposed alien craft and met with the passengers of these crafts. And although it is already strange enough in and of itself, some of these cases are even more bizarre than others. And in this article, they look at a selection of rarely obscure and very odd alien abduction cases that really take the whole phenomena out into the fringes of the weird. Let's give you one or two of the cases, and then again, we'll post the rest for you to take a look at. And here it is. Here's one of the reports right now. It says, he put a black square plate on my chest and strapped it around my back. I could hear a dog barking away off in the distance, but I couldn't hear him walking. He must have walked very easily. I could see his outline as he walked around me. Behind the brush was a small field. In the field, hidden from the road, was a round object about 150 feet in diameter. It was dark and I couldn't tell what it was. My first thought was that a spy had captured me for some reason. The thing that led me sort of rose from the ground and took me after him to the top of the object. He did something, either stepped on something or pushed some button, and a door opened and he pulled me after him down into the dark. I was plenty scared and I wondered what would happen next. I got down in the dark and I could feel a floor under my feet. First of all, just being in the dark and then not knowing in the dark, very, very scary. I knew that where I was either glass or plastic because the stars could be seen shining up above. Then I saw the outline of what looked like a door, and he pulled me through into what I later found out was a room of glass or plastic. He kept his finger, or what I thought was his finger, and later saw was some sort of pencil-shaped object, pointed at me until I was inside the room. He kept it pointed at me all the time. Then when I was in the room, he took it off me and I sank down to the floor. He went out and I could see his outline. There was some sort of shaking sensation and I knew the door to the room had been shut. He then claims, this person, that he could feel himself rising into the air before coming back down to rest, saying that during that time he noticed the moon and then bright sunlight beaming upon him. This is when he looked to see a rather strange entity there with him. He would say this of that entity: the next sensation I had was a sensation of rising up into the air. I had never flown before in my life. In a few minutes, I could see the left half of the moon shining. I was so scared, but I figured I was dreaming. Then I started to feel my hands and feet again. I sat up and then I got up on my feet. By this time, we were in sunlight. I looked up across the ship and I could see the person that had brought me here. He was standing over the wall and there were some levers on the wall. He looked like a person, like we are, a little bit shorter than me. To me at the time, he looked like a devil. He had no hair at all. I could see through the sort of glass helmet. His head was a sort of cylinder form, a very high forehead with big eyes. You could see lots of little eyes in the two big eyes. Ew. Mm-hmm. It seemed to me, it looked like the eyes of a fly. Oh, no, thank you. No. No nose at all, just two holes. Okay, so the eyes of a fly and two holes. He had a very small slit of a mouth. It looked like he had skin, and it was sort of white. There were two holes for the ears. His skull was very large, and he had no eyebrows or hair, any hair at all. The torso was round, kind of like a tin can. The legs were kind of proportionate length. His arms were a little bit shorter than our arms. I would say his hands seemed to be like three long fingers. I couldn't see any neck, but he was dressed in material that was like silver, but it wasn't shiny. This covered all of him except the head part, which he had on his helmet at that point, and he didn't look at me at all. The main part of the ship that I could see from the room, I was that I was in appeared to be round and the walls were like glass, but you couldn't see anything through them. The floor was made of glass or plastic. In the middle of the floor, under the glass, was a black plate, something like I had strapped on my chest. So interesting. So under the floor, in the middle of the floor, under the glass, there's a black plate, and it's exactly like the stuff that's strapped to his chest, which would make you think that there's some sort of synergy between the two.
Mm-hmm.
From the corners of the plate, which looked to be about 10 feet square, black beams ran to the wall of the ship. I could see under the black plate, and there seemed to be a duplicate room on the other side of the ship. I could see the same kind of levers on the wall as the thing was standing beside. As soon as we came into the sun, I could feel a real burning heat. But he pulled a lever, and a covering like blue water came from the roof, from over the roof. And then the sun was normal, but I could still see through it. It's bizarre. The witness was at a loss for what was going on, with various scenarios running through his head, such as that he was dreaming or even dead. As he tried to process all of this, the ship apparently drew so close to the moon that the craters and other geological features were clearly visible. And then it stopped as the entity pointed its pencil apparatus downward. After this, the ship moved again, the moon and Earth fading away into the distance. Things would get even weirder from there, as the witness explains. Suddenly, another planet seemed to loop up in front of us, and I thought we were going to crash into it. I was sure of this, but the driver suddenly stopped it again, but there was no jerk. I realized then that we were still quite a ways away from the planet, and he started to glide sideways down toward the ground. I looked out over the land, and it looked like paradise. As we went down, I looked out over the land, and on one side there were red fields. On the other side, there was what looked like gray-green fields. Some places in the fields, there were what looked like big chimneys rising from the ground. It was bright daylight, and the sun was shining with no clouds in the sky. We were approaching the red fields, and I could see rivers with blue water in them. The rivers ran straight, and at intervals, there were bridges built across them, and I could see roads. The bridges were just like our bridges. From up high, I could see no signs of life. Then we glided up to a field that was filled with the saucers like I was in. There appeared to be hundreds of them. They were of different colors, gray, gold, and silver, but there was no black or red ones. The driver stopped the ship at about a quarter of a mile above them by just pulling the lever. Then we went straight down until we were about 20 or 30 feet from the ground, and he parked the ship on a high platform. As we went down, I could see that the same kind of people were in them like my driver. When we got stopped on the platform, the driver pulled a lever and the glass slid back, and he went outside. He put the pencil-like thing to his chest and slowly dropped to the ground like a falling leaf. He then started to walk very fast along to the third or fourth saucer. He pointed the pencil at his chest again and sort of jumped up inside the ship. He was inside the ship for about 10 minutes. I could see that the thing in the other ship was smaller than the driver of the ship that I was on. While he was inside the ship, I looked around at the other saucers, and I could see that they were the same type of people. Suddenly, quite a ways away, I saw two ships that had people from Earth in it. One ship was sort of dirty looking, and there was one man, one woman, and two kids in it. In another saucer nearby, that was kind of golden, I saw a man and a woman. I was going to wave at them, but I felt scared. I was waiting for them to wave at me, but they didn't wave. After I saw them, I thought that I would have to stay here with them now. Way off in the distance by the river, I could see things moving. They were dark, but I couldn't tell what they were. Maybe they looked like a herd of beef, but I couldn't tell that for sure. Down on the ground, I could see big red flowers growing. They looked something like our sunflowers. There were some green patches between them, but there were the flowers as far as the eye could see. The earth could be seen in patches too, and it was just the same as our earth. I got to thinking that I must be on Mars. I remembered what I had learned in school about it being red with canals, and it seemed to me that this must be Mars, although I wasn't 100% sure because I kind of lost location of things when we had left the moon. Now, after this, the ship took off again the same way that it had come, blazing past the moon again and approaching the glowing blue orb of Earth. They approached so fast that the witness was sure that they would crash, but the ship smoothly and silently approached the very same spot where they had been whisked away and deposited there in a state of confusion and not a little fear. Convinced that his mysterious captor was going to kill him, he continued. So at this point, he thinks he's a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I was really afraid that he would kill me. He opened the door. He took the pencil thing and pulled me out the door the way he brought me in. He guided me right back to the road. At that time, I could walk, but I was very light and he was just pulling me. He took the pencil from my chest and pointed it at my head. At that moment, a dog started to bark at us from about a quarter mile up the road, and it seemed to have startled me because the pencil thing clicked and nothing happened to me. I knew from the first experience I should be paralyzed, so I just pretended that I was so that he wouldn't know. He took the plate off my chest and went back to the ship. I stayed that way, and I stayed the way I was until I saw the outline of my saucer going off into the distance. Then I ran home. My wife was still up, and she saw me all excited. She asked me what happened, and I told her, nothing, I'm just sick. I couldn't tell her about the experience because she would have thought I was completely crazy. I noticed the time when I got home, and it was 12:20 a.m. The whole trip had taken about an hour. I think when the thing pointed the pencil at my head, it was going to make me forget what had happened or else kill me. I don't know which. Now, at that point, I'll take and I'll post the rest online so you can find out what happened a few years later with this guy, because he does have a few more experiences with this thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So kind of interesting, but I don't know, alien abduction, Mal. Where do you stand on alien abduction? Is that?
Well, I find it creepy.
Yeah.
So, and then I would always be worried that they'd come back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. One time and done. If I live through it, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put me up against it again. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I could deal with it again. That's just, that'd be a little too much. That's for sure. Whether it's friendly or not friendly, I don't think
Right.
I'm not in for a pound at that point. A penny, maybe. A pound, no. That's
right.
Okay. Was last week before we lost former President Jimmy Carter? I think it was last week, wasn't it?
Last week. Uh-huh.
Yeah, days are going so quickly. You know, in 1969, President Carter saw a UFO. And for a few years, it was a little bit of, I don't want to say it was a bit of a laughing moment for many politicians until, you know, in the 80s, I think people got kind of a kick out of it until other personalities came forward and said, well, you know, I had an experience. You know, John Lennon came out and said that. Many other celebrities came out and said, well, I've seen something in the sky. And all of a sudden it became kind of a accepted thing. But President Jimmy Carter came forward and he mentioned, well, you know, I had an experience as well. The late president had more than a passing interest in the UFO phenomenon when he was in office. Like many of the more recent U.S. presidents, Jimmy Carter, who died on December 29th at the grand old age of 100, touched upon the subject of UFOs both before and during his time in office. Most famously, he actually reported witnessing a UFO himself back in 1969. At the time, he had been scheduled to give a speech at a Lions Club meeting in Leary, Georgia, when some of the other guests directed his attention to a peculiar object in the sky. It was described as a bright object that moved toward him before stopping a short way off. It then proceeded to change color a few times before disappearing into the distance. The quote here is, there were about 20 of us standing outside a little restaurant. I believe a high school lunchroom. A kind of green light appeared in the western sky at that point, he recalled in 1973. This was right before, or rather right after sundown. It got brighter and brighter, and then it eventually disappeared. It didn't have any solid substance to it. It was just a very peculiar looking light. None of us could understand what it was, President Carter went on to say. Carter famously submitted a report to the International UFO Bureau detailing the sighting a few years later when he was governor of Georgia, and even promised to make every piece of information this country has about UFO sightings available to the public and the scientists while he was campaigning to become president of the United States. Ultimately, though, such disclosure never came to pass, mainly due to national security concerns. There's a familiar line.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't changed.
Nope.
During a 2007 podcast interview, he played down suggestions that the object he had seen in 1969 was the planet Venus, and thought that it was most likely to be a secretive military vehicle of some kind. He also stated that he did not believe that aliens were visiting the Earth, and denied claims that the government had been covering up evidence of extraterrestrial life. So President Carter did know something after his turn in office, but didn't really say much, which is interesting. It's interesting how presidents, once they've served, they're quite quiet about the whole phenomenon.
Yep.
Although I find it interesting now that President Trump is getting into office, he's like, let's blow the lid off this.
I can see him doing that. He's like, screw it.
He's he's the only one, though.
Balls to the walls.
He's the only one, though. You have presidents that have served multiple terms, but they've never in a second term said, well, you know what, let's take a crack at this. It's like something has stopped them. Something or somebody has stopped them and said, no, you know what, your energies are better served elsewhere. But he's the only one who's like, yeah, you know what, let's blow the lid off it. Let's go. I don't know. Well, we'll see how energetic he is about it when he gets past 80, because, he's 78 now.
Right.
And the suggestion has been made in the last week or so. Well, he only has so much time to get a certain agenda out there. And this has been put out there more than once. I've seen this more than once now in the last couple of days. President Trump only has so much time to get his agenda out there. So I wonder if he's going to be steered off this agenda now.
Oh.
Yeah. I wonder if this, and Joe Rogan last week said, I don't think President Trump gets it out there. I think that and the Kennedy assassination, the rest of the redacted files, I think that goes by the wayside.
Huh.
So we'll find out. There is something on the docket, though, that will get out there. That's the 2025's most exciting upcoming space missions, Mal. According to a couple of scientists out there, they say that this is what's on the docket. Actually, this is kind of a long article. So I tell you what, I'll post this one as well, so you can get a look at what is on the docket. But essentially, here's what's going on. According to Zhenbo Wang, hell of a name. I changed my name to that, but somebody already has it. Just saying. In 2024, space exploration dazzled the world. NASA's Europa Clipper began its journey to study Jupiter's moon Europa, of course. Well, if it's going to be called the Europa Clipper, it can't go to the moon. Just saying. Our moon, that is. SpaceX's Starship achieved its first successful landing, a critical milestone for future deep space missions. China made headlines with the Chang'e 6 mission, which successfully returned samples from the far side of the moon. Meanwhile, the International Space Station continued to host international crews, including private missions like Axiom Mission 3. As it turns out now, Zhenbo Wang says, as an international aerospace engineer, he says he's excited for 2025, when space agencies worldwide are gearing up for even more ambitious goals. And here's a look now at what's expected. Scouting the lunar surface with CLPS. NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Service, or CLPS, their initiative aims to deliver science and technology payloads to the moon using commercial landers. CLPS is what brought the Intuitive Machines Odysseus lander to the moon in February of 2024, marking the first U.S. moon landing since Apollo. In 2025, NASA has several CLPS missions planned, including deliveries by companies Astrobotic, Intuitive Machines, and Firefly Aerospace. These missions will carry a variety of scientific instruments and technology demonstrations to different lunar locations. The payloads will include experiments to study lunar geology, test new technologies for future human missions, and gather data on the moon's environment. The next thing they'll be doing is surveying the skies with SphereX. In February 2025, NASA plans to launch the spectrophotometer for the history of the universe, epoch of reionization, and ISIS, not the
Right. Not the bad guys.
right, ICES, ICES, Explorer, or SphereX observatory. The mission will survey the sky in near-infrared light, which is a type of light that is invisible to the naked eye, but that special instruments can detect. Near-infrared light is useful for observing objects that are too cool or too distant to be seen in visible light. So SphereX will create a comprehensive map of the universe by surveying and collecting data on more than 450 million galaxies, along with over 100 million stars in the Milky Way. Pretty interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So astronomers will use that data to answer big questions about the origin of galaxies and the distribution of water and organic molecules in stellar nurseries, where stars are born from gas and dust. They'll be studying low Earth orbit with Space Rider. The European Space Agency, or ESA, plans to conduct an orbital test flight of its Space Rider uncrewed spaceplane in the third quarter of 2025. Now, Space Rider is a reusable spacecraft designed to carry out various space and scientific experiments in low Earth orbit. So that will be happening. They'll be exploring the moon with M2 Resilience. Japan's M2 Resilience mission, which is scheduled for January 2025, will launch a lander and micro rover to the lunar surface. This mission will study the lunar soil to understand its composition and properties. Researchers will also conduct I had to be careful how I read this, water splitting test, not spitting, but water splitting test to produce oxygen and hydrogen by extracting water from the lunar surface, heating that water, and splitting the captured steam. The generated water, oxygen, and hydrogen can be used for enabling long-term lunar exploration. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Did you see those videos? Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, I think they were just recently released, but they're videos of the sounds that are coming off of planets and moons and stuff.
I saw if you go to our Darkness Radio chat, they had the sounds of solar winds off the sun.
Right. And now they've got them off of other planets and stuff. It's just creepy.
Yeah. The sounds of space are scary.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. They say in space, no one can hear you scream. Well, you can hear everything scream in space. I'm sorry. That's not true. Space is noisy.
Yeah, but it was very interesting because there's a difference between like the sun and like Saturn because of the ring. It's just it was
eerie.
Bone chilling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very eerie.
Mm-hmm.
Space is just an eerie place.
Yep.
They'll be investigating an asteroid with Tianwen-2. Now, China's Tianwen-2 mission is an ambitious asteroid sample return and comet probe mission. It was scheduled for launch in May of 2025. Tianwen-2 aims to collect samples from a near-Earth asteroid and study a comet. This mission will advance scientists' understanding of the solar system formation and evolution, building on the success of China's previous lunar and Mars missions. The mission's first target is the near-Earth asteroid 469219, Kamoa-Oa-Lua. Easy for me to say.
Mm-hmm.
This asteroid is a quasi-satellite of Earth, meaning it orbits the sun but stays close to Earth. Kamoa-Oa-Lua is roughly 131 to 328 feet in diameter and may be a fragment of the moon, ejected into space by a past impact event. By studying that asteroid, scientists hope to learn about the early solar system and the processes that shaped it. The spacecraft will use both touch and go and anchor and attach techniques to collect samples from the asteroid's surface. There's some solar system flybys that are scheduled as well during the year. Again, they're scheduled throughout the year with different things like Bepi Colombo, which is a joint mission by ESA and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, NASA's Europa Clipper mission, which launched in October of 2024. We'll do some of those. The ESA's Hera mission will also perform a flyby of Mars in March of 2025. NASA's Lucy mission will continue a journey to explore the Jupiter Trojan asteroids. By the way, don't poke a hole in those Trojans. Bad things happen. Just saying.
You might be having little asteroids.
That's right. Little asteroids could form. You're right, Mallie. And ESA's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, or JUICE, which I believe Tupac starred in, mission will perform a Venus flyby in August of 2025. So those are kind of what's on tap for a lot of stuff in space in 2025. So don't let them tell you the space program's dead. It's just not. So it's alive in all countries. So there you go. All right, we're going to take our break right here, Mel. When we come back, we got some spooky news.
Oh, I like it.
Well, not just on the ghost front. We've got some spooky news when it comes to AI.
Oh, geez Louise.
Let's just say your personality isn't even safe. We'll talk about that and how it takes just 2 hours to replicate your personality with AI.
What if you have two? What if you have like multiple personalities?
Well, it's going to be a while then. Probably want to go out, do some shopping, come back. You know, it might be a while. There's some paranormal encounters abound at the heart of British politics. We'll talk about that when we come back. We'll talk about how dogs were sometimes implicated during the Salem witch trials.
Oh,
poor puppies.
Yeah.
How is a dog a witch? We'll talk about that when we get back. We've got Parashare today. So we'll talk about predictions. We'll end our prediction segment for 2025. And we'll recap my predictions as well as Jess's predictions. And we'll get 5 from Mallie as well. She's got 5 in her. We'll find out. Also, the largest ever study of ayahuasca was done to reveal its potential to boost mental health and well-being. Now, we talked about that on the program before, but we'll see what this study has to say. Does it actually improve our well-being? Interesting. And we'll end the program. We talk about predictions, but we'll end the program talking about how 30 years ago they saw our world today.
Oh.
We'll tell you just how out of pocket they really were. So we'll find out exactly how we're supposed to be living today. That's how we'll end the show today. So that is the program, the big program for today. Supernatural news and Parashare right here on a Wednesday. Tim Dennis and Mallie Fox on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Right over there is the co-hostess with the mostest, Mallie Fox. Mallie, it's darn cold out there.
Yes, it is. It finally hit us. The cold wave has hit Michigan.
Oh, you know, I can deal with, you know, relatively cold, relatively cold to me, 20, 30 degrees. I hate January. I hate January. You know, I like seasons, but I absolutely hate January.
Well, because even the snow is hard and crunchy in January in Minnesota. You know what I mean? There's like nothing beautiful about it.
No, it's
you
just
get the wind taken out of you when you open up the door because it's so cold.
You lose your breath. You know, your boogers freeze. It's just there's nothing. Nothing cute about.
Not attractive. Yeah.
No. But I try to look at the bright side of everything, right? I mean, at least we get some sunny days. I mean, when it's sunny, it's sunny. Like it's corniest type sunny. But I mean, I guess I shouldn't complain, but we haven't had a day above 20 in God knows how long. And it's been cold. And they keep telling us it's going to warm up. It's going to warm up. Is it warmed up? I'm looking forward to a warm day here someday.
It's been really decent, except for this past week. It's just been like, woo, burr. It's been in the 20s.
Yeah, we've been in the deep freeze. It's 17 degrees right now.
Ugh,
Be glad you're not in Minnesota.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
chilly.
do miss Minnesota, but yeah, I'm glad I'm not there weather-wise.
It's chilly. They're talking about 20s later on in the week, but
Yeah. But it used to be worse.
it did. It did. It used to be. I mean,
Like negatives.
we'd be in the negatives right now.
In January. Because what is it? January is the coldest month and then February's the snowiest.
Yep. Well, it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. But we're getting to the point now where in February we're dropping into the negative digits, and
Oh.
March we're barely pulling into the 20s and 30s.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going through some sort of weird, and last year it was a mild winter. We had a very
Right.
wild winter.
Yeah, because you had a warm Christmas.
Yeah, we did. We had extremely warm Christmas. And the chipmunks were out early. The chipmunks were out in like March or
Yeah.
February or March. I mean, they didn't know what to think. They were out extra long last year. So I don't think they're coming out early this year. I think this year we're going to have a regular winter.
Mm.
But yeah, my little buddies.
Do you follow the Farmer's Almanac?
I do not, although I'm thinking about cheating and looking and seeing when we're.
Because I always hear that it's kind of accurate,
Yeah, I'm thinking about
which is
cheating and
weird.
looking, seeing when they're
Yeah.
coming back. Did I tell you what I got for Christmas?
Nope. I got a book on serial killers.
Did you?
Yeah, it was one of my gifts.
How is it? Is it a good book? Can you
I
tell us?
haven't started. I have so many books I have to start reading, but it looks good. Yeah.
You know what the name of the book is offhand?
Do I have it in here? I don't have it in my office. I thought I did, but oh, wait, what is this? Yeah, I got two.
Yeah, two. Oh,
Yeah. I
what
have American Female Serial Killers, the full encyclopedia of American female serial killers. Then I've got the big book of serial killers, an encyclopedia of serial killers, 150 serial killer files of the world's worst murderers.
really?
Merry Christmas to me.
I guess, right? I got a book as well.
What'd you get?
I got this book, which was written by Spud.
Cute.
It's an interesting company that actually intern Yoko found. And they're online. And it's called Peanuts, Pipe Dreams, and Papa. That's the name of the book. The Whimsical Adventures of Spud, a chipmunk who loves her kids and her human.
Oh,
And it's written from the perspective of Spud.
okay.
Spud's adventure with me and the other chipmunks.
That's very creative.
It is. And so intern Yoko filled out a questionnaire,
Hmm.
about an hour, and there's 250 pages to this book.
Holy crap. I
Yeah.
thought it would be like 20 pages like a children's book.
No, no, it's very detailed. In fact, the first, believe it or not, the first chapter opens up with Spud talking about being on Darkness Radio, which is amazing.
Oh, that's funny.
It's
Does it use AI?
it does use AI,
Uh,
but you know what? You'd never know it.
okay.
It's clever. It's funny. It's amazing. It's an amazing book. I've started to read it. I'm through about the first 4 or 5 chapters,
Hmm.
and I mean, you just absolutely fall in love with the characters. It's so funny, and Spud talks about in the book talks about collecting seeds and what it is you give the character its life, so to speak, in the questionnaire, and then it comes up with its character traits. But it talks about hanging out waiting for the kids to get home from school on the school bus and yelling at the kids who are noisy across the street. And I mean, and sitting on the tractor tire and hanging out, and I mean everything that Spud does. So it takes all the little points that you give it, and it gives I mean, you give it its personality, but then it spits it out, and then
Right.
right. So it's very good. It's very good. It's a very good book. So yeah, I was impressed.
That's cute.
Yeah, and again, And people are going to go, where'd you get it? Where'd you get it? I have to look. I don't remember the name of the company, but in fact, I didn't put the back of the book on my phone, but it's they advertise on all social media. But it's an absolutely wonderful little concept of just fill out a questionnaire. And if you see the ads on like Snapchat, or you see the ads on Facebook, or you see the ads on Instagram, it's the ad is a woman whose husband poops too much. He's in the bathroom.
Okay.
And so she writes him a book about him pooping too much, like literally.
Oh.
Yeah. It's hysterical. Yeah, but it's too funny. It's just so that was like one of the best gifts I got this year.
Oh, that's very thoughtful.
Yeah. So that was one of my great gifts. So anyways, people may say, well, am I softening up to AI because AI made me happy this year I said happy. So there comes the music. Am I softening up to AI? Hell no. It's still going to be the downfall of society.
Yep. 100%.
100%. In fact, here is a story about the dead internet theory and it resurfacing as Meta opened up AI user floodgates. By the way, we covered it yesterday here now. The New Orleans terrorist used Meta glasses.
Yes, I heard about that.
Talk about using AI to plan a terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of Facebook and Instagram is planning something that could end up proving conspiracy theorists correct. Dead internet theory, which has been around for a few years now, is the controversial idea that the internet has been almost completely taken over by bots and AI users, and that most of the content of social media posts you read were not actually written by human beings. As AI becomes increasingly sophisticated, this concept certainly doesn't seem all that impossible. We've already seen how easily AI-generated content can fool people into believing that it is the real deal. I don't know, do you buy that?
Well, I know that their AI has created stories, and some of them have been false. But I don't know.
But do you believe that most of the posts you're looking at are AI-generated?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay. Well, it's difficult to imagine that the majority of the content on the internet is generated by AI. In the near future, the potential for this to become reality is likely to increase exponentially. Such a future became all the more likely recently when Meta, the company behind social media giants Facebook and Instagram, revealed that it was working on a plan to enable its users to create AI characters and that it expected AI accounts to become commonplace in the near future. Meta is not alone in doing this either. Other platforms have also similar plans. This means that given how sophisticated AI chatbots have already become, we could genuinely see a future in which a large percentage of the content online has been generated by computers. Telling AI content apart from human content will be increasingly challenging. Whether this will mean that the dead internet theory has actually come true, however, will likely remain a matter of debate. That would mean zombies have come true.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, internet zombies. Not real zombies, but
right. Now that would be a whole new story.
That it would. Meanwhile, Mallie, if you thought the dead internet theory was something, think about this. AI can take just 2 hours for its agents to replicate your personality with 85% accuracy.
What if we liked that personality better than our own personality?
And I guess we go with it, don't we?
Yeah, I'd be like, damn, I like that Mallie.
Darn good. I kind of like the Spud personality in the book. I'm not gonna...
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the Spud personality in the book's actually kind of better than Spud's own personality.
Less attitude.
Yeah, Spud's kind of cantankerous some days. And Spud in that book was kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers from Google and Stanford have created accurate AI replicas of more than 1,000 people.
Oh, Lordy.
You're right. It's not like they took, a handful and said, let's try it. 1,000. A 2-hour conversation with an artificial intelligence model is all it takes to make an accurate replica of someone's personality, according to researchers. That's what they've discovered. In a new study published November 15th through the preprint database, I never know how to pronounce this, ARXIV. I know there's Roman numerals there, so it's probably AR14 relevant. Researchers from Google and Stanford University created simulation agents, essentially AI replicas of 1,052 individuals. That's not a small amount of people. And based on 2-hour interviews with participants. These interviews were used to train a generative AI model designed to mimic human behavior. To evaluate the accuracy of the AI replicas, each participant completed 2 rounds of personality tests, social surveys, and logic games, and were asked to repeat the process 2 weeks later. When the AI replicas underwent the same tests, they matched the responses of their human counterparts with 85% accuracy. The paper proposed that AI models that emulate human behavior could be useful across a variety of research scenarios, such as evaluating the effectiveness of public health policies, understanding responses to product launches, and even modeling reactions to major societal events that might otherwise be too costly, challenging, or ethically complex to study with human participants. Interesting. General purpose simulation of human attitudes and behavior, where each simulated person can engage across a range of social, political, or informational contexts, could enable a laboratory for researchers to test a broad set of interventions and theories, the researchers wrote in the paper. Simulations could also help pilot new public interventions, develop theories around casual and contextual interactions, and increase our understandings of how institutions and networks influence people. That sounds like a psychological experiment.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Nope. Me neither.
It
needs to go away.
That's right. They claim that the technology could let us study aspects of human behavior in ways that were previously impractical by providing a highly controlled test environment without the ethical, logistical, or interpersonal challenges of working with humans. I claim it's just cloning personalities to put in robots.
Yep. Totally. Someone needs to put their foot down on this stuff.
Yeah. I don't like it.
Need to slow our roll.
I don't like it, Mallie. I don't like it a bit. And you know what that means? Okay, so I'm going to transition to the next story. But the reason why you would clone a personality, Mal, also is so when people die, you can put that personality into a robot body. You can cling onto that robot body.
Nope. No, thank you.
And that way, no one truly dies.
I think we need to grieve and then move on.
I think so too, but I think that's another way of people holding on to somebody who's gone.
But it's not really them. It's their personality, but it's not them. It's not their soul.
But again, if you can get it to within 85% accuracy, people don't know. They don't know the difference.
It's just, it's creepy. Bleh.
People want to glom on to what they want to glom onto, right? I mean, that's what they do. You know, if I can have a picture of somebody, right? I mean, think about it. It's no different to some people. It's no different than, you know, your grandfather's World War II medals or treasured object. Well, I have a hat back here that, I have a hat and a glove, a golf glove that my grandfather and I got signed by a bunch of PGA golfers from a golf tournament that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have the shared experience. Okay. Now it doesn't, the only thing that it sat on a shelf that was in my grandfather's house at one time. It doesn't bring him back, but it's just, it's a piece of him. It's a part of him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's closer than that to him than having a cloned personality of him inside a robot, right? To some people, it's a long jump,
Right.
a short pier, right?
Yeah.
Right? They think, well, it's not my grandfather, but it's his personality,
Mm-hmm.
right? If he sat down and he did the tests, and
it's just I don't know.
Yeah,
We're getting away from the human aspect of it.
Yeah, I know. It's a creepy thing to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Well, our next story has to do with a combination lock proving that it's possible to talk to the dead, if you want to go one step further.
Okay.
The late researcher Dr. Ian Stevenson once came up with a novel way of proving that we could speak to the dead. Now, Dr. Stevenson, who died back in 2007, was a distinguished psychiatrist who was known for founding the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia School of Medicine, a department that was and still is dedicated to the investigation of reincarnation, life after death, and other such topics. During his time there, he and his colleagues documented 2,500 cases of children who seemed to recall details of their past lives and conducted extensive research into each one in order to find evidence to corroborate these memories. But it was an experiment set up by Dr. Stevenson on an attempt to prove that communication with the dead was possible that remains the most unique and notable thing about his work at the department. It was known as the combination lock test for survival. This unassuming object is essentially a little more than a standard 6-digit combination lock that has remained unopened for decades. Now, Dr. Stevenson reasoned that if he could transmit the combination code for the lock to someone after he was dead, it would prove that not only that our spirit continues to endure after death, but that it was also possible to communicate with those who have already passed on. Sadly, despite his death in 2007, nobody has yet been able to open the lock or been able to open to lock. That too. That's what it says in the article. Today, the department continues to do its research into the possibilities of life after death, and in doing so honors the work of the man who started it all more than 40 years ago. Whether anyone will ever learn the code to the combination lock, however, remains to be seen. Now, there's fallibilities in this, of course. There's only so many combinations to a combination lock.
Mm-hmm.
Who says a skeptic doesn't walk in, somebody from a skeptic society, and says, I think I can open that lock. Even without getting a message from the dead, I think I can crack. Who says there's not an experienced safecracker who comes in and says, I can crack that combination. In fact, I can do it within hours. And I don't need a message from the dead. I can do it. Who says a magician doesn't come forward?
Mm-hmm.
Says, I can crack that lock. I mean, there's fallibility in every experiment, right?
Yep.
I mean, we look at stories such as Houdini, and Houdini saying if there's, Houdini throughout his life said if there was a way to come back, then there was the secret word, there was a secret code, there was something. I will come forward and I will give the secret word on Halloween, wasn't it? The Halloween seance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will come forward on Halloween, and they had seances on Halloween for years and years and years. I'll come forward and I'll give you the one word. He never did. That doesn't mean that there isn't an afterlife. Maybe it just means that he was never meant to give it.
Right. Well, I thought he kind of poo-pooed the afterlife, like the spiritual realm, because wasn't he friends with
Arthur
Doyle?
Conan. Yep.
Yeah. Who believed in it, but he didn't.
Yes.
I thought they had tension.
Doyle was a believer and he was a skeptic.
Yeah.
But
So I figure if you were a skeptic in life, wouldn't you be a skeptic in death? So
not necessarily, because Houdini had lost his mother, and he wanted to prove, he was initially a believer. He wanted to prove that his mother was on the other side. but then became a skeptic when there was no message. Because he
Maybe
had gone
she
from,
wasn't a good person.
maybe she went straight to hell.
Yeah, maybe where she wasn't allowed to contact the living.
But it was only Houdini only became a skeptic after he went from psychic to psychic to psychic, and they couldn't tell him the proper information.
Mm-hmm.
It was only then that he realized it was parlor trick after parlor trick.
Yeah.
And that he wasn't getting the accurate information. He just knew it was all charlatanry and flim-flam, as any magician would tell you.
Oh, you just didn't go to the right one.
See, you would think. But, I mean, in those days, it was easier to find bad psychics.
Yeah.
Right. And those were the days of ectoplasm and
Mm-hmm.
tipping and, you know, although some people swear by table tipping these days. But those were the days where in seances and, you know, there was a lot of charlatans in those days.
Yep.
So, yeah. So that's pretty common. Our next story has to do with paranormal encounters abound at the heart of British politics. Now, for years, politicians and staff have had unexplained encounters in the halls of London's parliamentary buildings. With its ornate and instantly recognizable exterior, the Palace of Westminster, which stands in central London on the banks of the River Thames, has served as the heart of British politics for centuries. It is perhaps no surprise then that some of those who work there on a regular basis believe it is haunted by the spirits of those who previously roamed its labyrinth corridors. Recently, Joanne Crowder, who once worked as an aide to the House of Commons Sir Lindsay Hoyle, revealed a couple of her own unexplained experiences. In one instance, she recalled the distinct feeling of a dog rubbing past her leg as she worked. But when she looked down, she found that there was no dog in the room. That would be a little alarming, although just reach down and pet and say, good doggy. I mean, you know, just go with it. That's what I say, Mallie.
Just go with it.
Just go with it. Right. According to other staff members, reports of phantom dogs have been told in the building for years. Crowder also experienced another paranormal encounter, this time when she noticed someone else's face reflected back at her in the glass of a door at one of Westminster's many corridors. I thought, oh, that's my reflection. I can see myself, she told The Sun. I don't know what made me think of it. I could see myself, but then I actually thought to myself, that is clearly not my face.
That's creepy.
Uh-oh. She said, that looks like me, but that's not my face. There was definitely a gray-haired lady in this panel of glass. Whoops. Westminster isn't the only place in British politics to be home to ghost sightings either. The Prime Minister's residence of 10 Downing Street has also seen a fair few paranormal occurrences. A few years ago, the building's facilities manager, David Heaton, described his own experience. He had been walking through one of the dining rooms when he felt someone brush past him. I absolutely jumped out of my skin, he recalled. After looking around the room, he was quickly able to confirm that there was nobody else there at all. Fun stuff. See, that stuff to me isn't necessarily scary.
No, it's not.
No, but it's alarming. It's a little take you back a little bit, but
it's startling to see an old lady's reflection.
Sure.
Because you're not expecting it, but the little animal or brushing up against something, that's not creepy.
No. I've had the animal brush up against me.
I have as well.
That's kind of endearing, right?
Yeah.
Just to know that there's a little animal on the other side who wants to acknowledge you. That's actually kind of endearing. That's not scary.
Yeah.
Our next article has to ask the question, do you believe in ghosts? Fortune tellers, how one expert explains what paranormal is. Get ready. Here's your skeptic alert for this particular story, which is trying to figure out where this article came from. A professor uses anomalistic psychology to try to understand belief in phenomena that lack scientific support, such as psychics and ghosts. So strap yourself in and get ready to be mad at me for a little bit.
Okay.
That is, if you're a believer. If you're a skeptic, you don't care. The question is, do you believe in ghosts or paranormal activity? Professor Chris French is keen to know why. His research focuses on anomalistic psychology to answer why people believe in events which are not supported by scientific evidence. Anomalistic psychology, by the way, is a term that he coined, and it differs from parapsychology. Parapsychologists typically focus most of their efforts on attempting to find evidence in support of paranormal phenomena, that is, phenomena such as ESP, psychokinesis, and life after death, which cannot be explained in terms of currently accepted scientific concepts, French told the Post. Anomalistic psychology attempts to explain reports of ostensibly paranormal experiences in terms of non-paranormal, typically psychological factors, he said. Are you still following me? These factors include hallucinations, the unreliability of eyewitness testimony, when people think they remember seeing things they have not, and a host of mental biases, which lead people to explain an otherwise worldly event in supernatural terms. Mandela effect. French, a professor emeritus at Goldsmiths College of University of London in the UK, explores examples of supernatural activity in his research and in his book, The Science of Weird Shit, Why Our Minds Conjure the Paranormal. I think he's pretty much put himself out there, Mallie.
Yeah.
Yeah. He researches ghost sightings, fortune tellers, clairvoyants, and psychics. Alien abductions are also under his purview. If it's a strange thing, French is interested. Ghost sightings take up much of his time, and there are many reasons for people to think that they have seen one. A well-proven phenomena called sleep paralysis is little known outside of scientific circles. Well, we've debunked that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It can convince even skeptics that they are in the presence of a usually malicious ghost. Sleep paralysis is a temporary period of paralysis that occurs between sleep and wakefulness, he says. It can, however, be associated with a range of additional symptoms that can make it absolutely terrifying. He's going to go over the same stuff that's normally brought up here, but he says these include a strong sense of evil presence and hallucinations such as hearing voices or footsteps and seeing demons and old hags. Other symptoms include experiencing difficulty in breathing, feeling pressure on the chest, and intense fear. Now, during a normal night's sleep, people go through different stages, one of which is REM, or rapid eye movement, sleep in the phase that is associated with vivid dreams. The muscles of the body are actually paralyzed during this phase, presumably to stop the sleeper from acting out the actions of the dream, French says. Sometimes REM sleep dream imagery gets mixed up with feelings of wakefulness, and we believe that we're having a supernatural experience. It's a glitch in the normal sleep cycle. It's as though the brain wakes up, but the body doesn't. And all of that imagery spills into waking consciousness, says French. Many artistic representations of ghosts and demons from the past probably stem from sleep paralysis, he says. Oh, he goes all in. He just says all of your dreams are emptying into the waking world, and that's it. And that's that. Interesting. He explains fortune tellers' skills, too. Are you ready for this?
Yeah. He's going to get a bunch of hate mail.
Yeah, he is. Even skeptics can be taken aback by the seeming accuracy of a reading. But that is because the fortune tellers are actually more skilled at reading the client than they are the cards, French says. A cold reading technique that enables the fortune tellers to take cues from the subject's appearance, mood, mannerisms, and all the chat that takes place during the reading. It can be used by the deliberate con artists to fool others that they have psychic abilities, the professor says. But I suspect that individuals who sincerely believe that they have a psychic gift may be unintentionally using some of the same techniques. Many personal insights are actually pretty universal. One aspect of cold reading is the use of so-called Barnum statements, French says. These are statements which appear to be saying something perceptive about your innermost personality, but which in fact apply to pretty much everyone. How does he explain Ouija boards? A way of supposedly communicating with the dead by asking questions and having a form of marker move across a board of letters and numbers to spell out answers seemingly on their own. When people experience the planchette, or alternatively, an upturned wine glass, moving around during a Ouija board session, the illusion that some external force is causing the movement is very strong. In fact, those taking part causing the movement themselves via unconscious muscular movement. This is known as ideomotor effect. In Victorian times, when tables would move across a room during seances, the same was true. Sometimes ghost stories are simply hoaxes con men perpetuate to make a buck. While hoaxers do exist, our desire to believe is the bigger culprit. The single most powerful cognitive bias that we all suffer from is confirmation bias, says French. We pay more attention to evidence that is consistent with what we already believe or what we would like to be true, and either ignore evidence that is inconsistent or make up reasons why it can be dismissed. If you believe in ghosts, it is more likely that you will think you see one, he says. French used to believe in ghosts himself, and as a child, says he was impressed by Uri Geller, the famous 1970s psychic who claimed he could bend spoons just by thinking about them, an illusion which French says his conjurer friends have since told him is actually simple to perform. After reading James Alcock's book, Parapsychology, Science or Magic, while studying for his PhD, French became a skeptic, finding scientific evidence to support the existence of the paranormal, in which case it would no longer be paranormal, but normal, would of course change his mind. Skepticism is at the heart of science. For me, proper skepticism means always being open to the possibility that you might be wrong in your own beliefs, French says. So even though I feel it is extremely unlikely that ghosts or other paranormal phenomena will ever be proven to be real, I do leave the door open to that small possibility. I might call bullshit on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a cynic.
Yes.
And he would like to be proven wrong, but is not open to the possibility that he will be proven wrong. I think he's already closed his mind down.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he were to say, well, prove me right or prove me wrong, then he would sit there and say, well, if I'm wrong, then, I'm open to the fact that here's how I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that never comes out of his mouth. He's looking for more reasons to be right than he is to be wrong.
Yes.
That's not an open skeptic.
Yeah, that's not being open-minded to the possibility.
Right. He's very closed-minded as to this is why I'm right.
Right.
He's not saying, well, this is where I could be potentially wrong. So that's not an open-minded skeptic at all. That's a cynic. I've met plenty of cynics. I've not, that's the problem I have, Mal, and I'm going to get on a soapbox for a quick moment. I meet a lot of people say, well, I'm a skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
How are you? Ask yourself the question. If I were to run into a piece of paranormal evidence, I can debunk it easily. But after I get done debunking it, can I ask myself the question, now look for the reason why this might be paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Look for the reason why this might actually be something. Can I turn my evidence around and say, can I see what the person saw? Can I see it from both sides?
It's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. Now, if you can see more, if you can debunk it and it's easily debunkable, well, then I get it. But if it's unexplained and it's hard to debunk, if it's just as hard to debunk as it is to prove, that it's paranormal. I don't know that I put that right, but you get what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
If it's just as easy 50-50,
Mm-hmm.
you're having just as hard a time debunking it as you are proving it's paranormal. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I may be doing a Yogi Berra here. Then at that point, that's when your mind needs to open, not close. That's when you need to be looking for answers on both sides and really need to be delving further and looking at both sides of the problem or issue. I shouldn't say problem, both sides of the issue and trying to fight for both, here are the reasons why I can debunk it. Here are the reasons why I can prove it. Okay. And then make the laundry list and then truly be open. So, but that's only if you're the investigator. I wouldn't, if someone were to give me the evidence, I'd say, well, you were the one on site, not me. Mm-hmm. You can tell me all the atmospheric conditions and what was going on, not me. I had a friend recently, and then I'll wrap it up with this. And in fact, I think I can still show you the picture. It was, I actually had to question myself real quick here as an investigator because, but actually, I think I did a pretty good job of it. Uh, so he gets a hold of me, and actually, this is a mutual friend of ours. Gets a hold of me and says, dude, he goes, I've been having kind of a rough week. Let's see if I still have the picture in my phone. Says, I've been having kind of a rough week. I was just hoping that there was somebody with me. He was going to officiate a wedding.
Okay.
And he says, look at my jacket. I think there's like an orb on my jacket. I'm like, orb on your jacket. And then I look, yep, I do have it. I do have it still on my phone. So I'm going to show you the picture of his jacket real quick. So this is the close-up of what's on his jacket. Okay. Oh, I'm getting shine off my phone. But do you see that?
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the people who are watching on video see that. And you see it in two different spots there?
Yeah. Above the pocket as well.
Yes. Okay. So that already looks suspicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you the full picture. Once I show you the full picture, Mal, you're going to go, okay, I know what's wrong here. Wait, I got to take the one out with the circles. Okay. Here's the full picture. Can you tell me automatically where that's coming from?
The lights up above.
That's right.
Correct? Yeah.
That's right. Automatically in 10 seconds. I looked at it and I said, I know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the shine from the neon bouncing off the metal onto his jacket. So that's an easy one. That's a layup.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But, at times I get so busy with stuff. I just go,
right.
I look at it and I was like, wait a minute. You don't have, first of all, you've got two things on your jacket that can't be orbs.
Right.
That's a reflection. But then I go, well, that's kind of an odd angle. But then I had to do this. So I had to play Kennedy assassination with it.
Oh.
Right. I had to show him the trajectory of how it bounced.
Was he okay with that answer, or was he kind of bummed, like he was hoping it was supernatural?
He was perfectly fine with it.
That's good. Because I hate it when you say, oh, okay, especially with orbs. The word orbs, I'm like, I start to cringe already because I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And then when you tell them what you think, because they ask for your opinion, what you think it could be, and then they get upset because you're disproving it.
Nope.
So sometimes,
he's perfectly fine.
That's good.
And it's because, and he came to me because he knew I'd be level headed with him.
Right.
Say, well, first of all, I said, okay, before I bust you down here, and I'm not trying to bust you down to be mean or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see around the room? What do you remember the room? Dude, I didn't see a thing. I didn't see a thing. I didn't see a thing. Okay. Take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember around the room? Lights and things like that. I don't remember. I just remember, and I said, there were a bunch of lights in the ceiling, right? He goes, yeah. And I said, okay, pull up the website real quick. So I had him pull up the website. I said, see all those lights in the ceiling? He goes, yeah. So I'm kind of leading the witness a little bit. And I go, I'm about to show you the picture again. You see that big green light there? You see the big green lights on your jacket? I said, follow the trajectory. There it is. And he was like, oh, I feel stupid. I said, well, don't feel stupid.
No, we all have those moments where we're like, whoo. And then once you start investigating it a little bit more, you're like, oh, it could be this.
He explained to me, well, it was taken with my phone. It's a digital picture. There shouldn't be effects like that, but there are. There always are. Digital phones aren't infallible. We have this idea that, because it was taken with my phone, and it's a digital picture, that digital pictures aren't analog, and we shouldn't have these effects happening in a digital phone. That's bullshit. It always happens. Mm-hmm. There's always digital artifacts in digital pictures. With filters and all this other stuff, it doesn't matter. There's so many. I know there's the filters are supposed to be new and improved, and with each phone that comes out, there's supposed to be. It turns out that the more filters they add, the more BS is thrown in.
Yeah.
And the more gets in the way of a true picture. So don't think that you're doing something wrong, because you're not. So it's just the way it is. So, All right, our next story, Mel, has to do with how dogs were sometimes implicated during the Salem witch trial. Speaking of us not doing anything wrong and us doing something very wrong. During the trials, dogs were sometimes associated with the devil or were said to be serving as familiars to the devil. There's a specialist by the name of Bridget Marshall, who's quoted as saying that she teaches a course in New England witch trials and witchcraft trials. And students always arrive with varying degrees of knowledge about what happened in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. 19 people accused of witchcraft were executed by hanging. Another was pressed to death, and at least 150 were imprisoned in conditions that caused the death of at least 5 more innocents. Each semester, a few students ask her about stories that they've heard about dogs. That's right, dogs. Poor dogs. Poor doggies. In 17th century Salem, dogs were part of everyday life. People kept dogs to protect themselves, their homes, and their livestock, to help with hunting and to provide companionship. However, a variety of folklore traditions also associated dogs with the devil. Of course, black dogs and other dogs. Beliefs that long predated what happened in Salem. Perhaps the most famous example of such belief is the case of a poodle named Boy who belonged to Prince Rupert, an English-German cavalry commander on the royalist side during the English Civil War. Between 1643 and 1644, stories spread across Europe that Boy the Poodle had supernatural powers, including shape-shifting and prophecy, that he used to aid his master on the battlefield. There's no mention in the official records of Salem's trials of any dogs being tried or killed for witchcraft. However, dogs appear several times in the testimony, typically because an accused which was believed to have had a dog as a familiar who would do her bidding, or because the devil appeared in the form of a dog. Numerous testimonies in the Salem trial records claim that dogs were in league with the devil, adding to the paranoia of this community that was spinning out of control. Now, on May 16th of 1692, a 45-year-old Amesbury, Massachusetts man named John Kimball testified against Susanna Martin, who is a 71-year-old widow, saying, among other things, that she had caused a black puppy to, it's the cutest thing ever, to appear before him when he was alone in the woods. A venomous, evil black
Oh.
Yeah. Kimball testified that he was terrified by the dog, which he thought would tear out his throat. A little black puppy, Mallie. The dog disappeared when he began to pray. This, among other testimony, would contribute to Martin's conviction for witchcraft in June of 1692. She was hanged in July 19th of 1692. It took that quick to convict her of witchcraft because he saw a black puppy that disappeared.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. In several instances recorded by the courts, accused witches confessed that the devil had appeared to them in the form of a dog. In September of 1692, 19-year-old Mercy Wardwell testified that she had been conversing with the devil, just sitting back having tea.
Right. Because what else are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing else to do in Salem in September of 1692. And that he had appeared to her in the shape of a dog. Her confession caused her to be jailed, although she was later released when the hysteria died down. During the same proceedings that September, 14-year-old William Barker Jr. testified that the shape of a black dog appeared to him and provoked anxiety. Soon after this, the devil appeared. It's hard to know if he was suggesting that the dog was the devil himself or his companion. There was no separating that out. Barker confessed that he had signed the devil's book, meaning that he had made a covenant with the devil and was a witch. Barker was jailed, though he would later be acquitted. Tituba, a woman of color enslaved in the Reverend Samuel Parris's household, also testified about her dog. When she was examined by magistrates on March 1st of 1692, Tituba recounted how the devil had appeared to her at least 4 times, like a great dog and as a black dog. She also said she saw cats, hogs, and birds, an entire menagerie of animals working for the devil. Evidently, the devil is Dr. Dolittle.
Yeah, totally.
Kimball's, Wardwell's, Barker's, and Tituba's testimonies certainly may have contributed to the ongoing alarm that the residents of Salem were being led astray by a devil who might appear to them in the shape of a dog. Now, there's some sketchy evidence here. Some popular accounts of the trials also suggest that at least 2 dogs were killed during the trials. That's right. But there is no evidence supporting this in the official legal testimony at the time. There is certainly some local legend that support the claims, and many accounts of Salem have included that these 2 dog deaths are part of the story. According to local historical researcher Marilyn K. Roach's 2002 book, The Salem Witch Trials, a day-by-day chronicle of a community under siege, some of the afflicted girls claim that a man named John Broadstreet had bewitched a dog. Although the dog was a victim, it was killed. Roach's history also notes that another dog was shot to death when a girl claimed that the dog's specter had afflicted her. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
Witchcraft belief at the time held that witches could send their specters or spirits out to do their bidding. While these are compelling stories, neither of these events can be verified in any existing official trial documents. The source that Roach cites for the Broad Street case is Robert Califf's book, More Wonders of the Invisible World, which was published in 1700. Califf, who was a Boston merchant, objected to how the trials were conducted. However, he was not present at the trials, and it is not clear what his source was for the dog stories. Such stories, and Califf's uncited retelling of it, do not have the same authority as the legal documents in the case. The earliest account of a dog being shot for being a witch appears in a commentary on the Salem trials, Cases of Conscience Concerning Evil Spirits, or CCCES. That's my abbreviation. Published in 1693, in which the clergyman Increase Mather claims that I am told by credible persons that a dog was shot for bewitching a person. But significantly, Mather did not name the human victim of the person who told him the story. Surprisingly, Mather actually defended the dog, saying that the fact was that they had successfully killed it meant that the dog was no devil. Oh, so in other words, kill the dog's not supernatural.
Right.
The devil would have just let the bullets bounce off of him.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly every history of Salem recounts how when Samuel Parris's daughters were having terrible fits that led people to believe they were bewitched, Tituba, the enslaved woman who lived in the household, baked a witch cake using urine from the afflicted girls and fed it to the family's dog. This gets weirder by the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow this was supposed to cause the dog to reveal the identity of the witch. Indeed, Reverend Parris condemned the ritual, which itself seemed to be its own kind of witchcraft. A little bit of fear and distrust here. All around, Salem's witch trials seem to have been bad for dogs, no doubt. Although there is no official legal evidence that dogs were killed for being witches, it's clear that there is strong association between dogs and the devil, and that dogs were sometimes treated poorly because of superstition. The Salem trials are a horrible example of what happens when people use terrible logic and leap to indefensible conclusions with shoddy evidence. In an environment of fear and distrust, even man's best friend could be suspected of dealings with the devil. So there you go. Or doggies.
Yeah. Innocent victims.
That's right.
Just like the witches.
They had no reason to be not trusted there, that's for sure. All right. With that, I think it's time now for us to get into some predictions before we get to some mysteries. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last week, Jessica and I had come up with some predictions. And by the way, we'll do some Parashare here. How about we do some Parashare, and then I'll tell you what Jess and I had predicted. A couple of our listeners heard that Jess and I had done some predictions last week. So you know what? No, I'm changing my mind here. I'm screwing up the order. Well, no, you know what? I'm changing it back. Look at me. Look at me having my own mind. So our listeners came up with their own 5 predictions for 2025. So Jess and I had come up with 5 predictions for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Our listeners had come up with their 5 predictions for 2025 after we came up with ours. And I'd said, hey, send in your 5 predictions for 2025. Just send them to tim@darknessradio.com. I'll encourage you, if you have yours, to still send them in. We'll read them next week if you have them. But eventually we have to cap this off, people. Don't send them in June. I don't want your
right.
2025. I'm just saying. There's got to be a cap.
Mm-hmm.
If you have more and you want to send them next week, you can. So here's what Jess had to say. She said that we'll get dribs and drabs of disclosure having to do with UFOs in 2025. There'll be an increased number of, God, I can't read my own writing. I should have been a doctor, of paranormal reported more something or another. Gosh, my writing is horrible. I should go back and listen to the file. 3, AI out of control. And something. My God, Tim. 4, Russia will stop attacking Ukraine. I read that.
Okay.
That much. Okay. And 5, turmoil with the royals. Meghan Markle may be leaving.
She needs to go away.
Yeah. And a bonus one, Darkness Radio will level up in so actually there were 6 on it. She actually came up with 6. Let's see if I can read my 5. My God, my writing is horrible. I think I had a stroke during this. Is what happened.
Your blood sugar went low.
Yeah, it went low. There you go, Mel. Thanks for the excuse. My first one was the Minnesota Vikings would win the Super Bowl. I think my blood sugar was low. I think you're right. A huge illness or death of the Pope.
Ooh.
Boy, I went out on a limb on that one, right? Number 3, Russia will absorb the Ukraine.
Oh.
Could be the potential start of World War III.
Ugh.
I'm just saying a potential World War.
Right.
Yeah. Number 4, major movie icon dies prematurely. It will be a tragic death. That was number 4. Number 5, the start of a recession in the U.S. economy will happen.
Yours are all negative. Except for you thought the Vikings were going to win. Yeah.
Well, even that's a negative. I don't think that's going to happen either. So, okay. So now we had 2 people submit their 2025 predictions. Mm-hmm. So Jeff sends this in. He says, here are 5 predictions I'm making for 2025. I want a little less gloom and doom than others, I'm sure. He says, number 1, there's going to be drama surrounding the NFL draft. Player won't sign with the team that drafted them. Team submits pick, but wrong player is announced. Something like that.
Okay. I
like that one. That's a good one. I can see that happening too. Especially this year. Mm-hmm. This year, there's a little, I think I'll go one step further with you, Jeff. I think it's going to surround Shedeur Sanders.
Oh,
Deion Sanders' kid.
Yeah.
I think you're right on that. Number two, there's going to be a run of cryptid sightings somewhere in the U.S. similar to the Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant in the 60s.
Okay.
Interesting.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like that. Number 3, a billionaire is going to face a scandal that severely reduces their net worth and forces them to resign from their position. Very nice. Ooh, look at Jeff following the kid here. You ready for this? The Baltimore Orioles will win the World Series.
Okay.
Someone's got Homer syndrome. I like it. I like it a lot. And number 5, as much as I hate to think this, I'm predicting that a Back to the Future remake or sequel will be announced. Or worse, they'll make a TV series out of it.
Yeah, they've been doing stuff like that. I think they're making a TV series out of Goonies. They should just let that be. Yeah. That's a classic.
Leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, Marky Mark writes in and says, wanted to get my top 5 predictions for the new year out and figured I'd start with a take on some of the ones you guys already put out there. It says number 5, and already he goes for the Vikings. I knew someone's going to take a shot at me. Ready? He says, I've lived in Minnesota my whole life and thus enough to know well that they have the ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. In other words, screw you, Tim. I say, even if they get by the Rams, who beat them earlier this year, they won't make it by the NFC Championship. But being a fair man who's also a Ravens fan, I'll say the same about them. As much as I'd like to see an all-purple Super Bowl, I'll say they won't get by the AFC Championship. So, Marky Mark already being negative about his purple teams. See, I'm not the only negative one here today.
Right.
Number 4, the economy. I think I have to agree with Tim a bit on this. Even if the incoming administration makes every move perfectly, which, let's be honest, would be pretty unlikely, it takes time for these things to take hold. It's like a controlled burn in the forest. It takes a while for new growth to take root. In the economy, it can be well over a year. So I see a not so great year with maybe some markets tipping toward recession. My hope is for 2026 to be a big growth year. Fingers crossed. All right. So Marky Mark agrees with me as far as the economy goes. Number 3, Ukraine. I saw a stat recently that stated the average age of troops in Ukraine is 45. That's true. That blew my mind. The people with means left the country, and the ones that stayed fought and died. This war has literally, now again, this is Marky Mark saying this, not the views of the show. This war has literally been a genocide to young men in Ukraine. Now, while Russia is clearly the aggressor and at fault, Putin will never stop without something, and Ukraine has no way to beat them. Pumping money into it only prolongs the death and destruction. I think sometimes standing on principle can get too many people killed, and if those people we knew and cared about, we may feel differently. So, all that being said, I think if we cut off funding, it would force them to come to the table and discuss a way out. Unfortunately, this probably means a smaller Ukraine, with Russia reclaiming the Western territories. I just don't see another way out without prolonged death and a possible start to World War III. This feels like the best possible outcome, and so I make it my prediction. That's exactly how Marky Mark put it. Number 2, celebrity deaths. Tim, you predicted the death of a big Hollywood star. I wanted to do the same for the world of politics. I was going to say Carter, but that would have been kind of a gimme. Ooh, look at you with the Deadpool. So cold. And unfortunately, he didn't make it for the new year. Boy, that's cold. Ooh, it's getting chilly in here. So I'll say an everyday name in politics will die rather suddenly this year as a bonus prediction. You ready for this? I'll say Trump will have another attempt on his life. Maybe not an assassin's bullet, maybe a bomb or an anthrax package, but something will happen. Now, Mallie, you missed this last week, but in the anniversary show, in the 2024 predictions, Jess and I had done some we didn't do our own 2024 predictions, but we had cited kind of like the British Farmer's Almanac.
Okay.
They accurately predicted a Trump assassination attempt. It was creepy. And we skipped over it like it was no big deal.
Right.
You just thought, oh, it's kind of absurd. But they accurately predicted it. It was creepy. 1, Darkness Radio. Let's go out on a high note. Marky Mark says, just predicted Darkness Radio leveling up this year, so I'm going to echo that. I listen to all your content, and I've never missed a show, so that's my hope for you in the new year. More guests, more Parashares coming in, and a bigger outreach in the world. Nothing but high hopes for you guys in the new year, and best wishes to you all, Marky Mark. So thank you, Marky Mark. Appreciate that.
Very nice.
Very nice. All right. Mallie, I'm putting you on the spot. I got to get my pen and paper out because I got to write these down better than what I wrote down myself from Jess. So hold on just a second here. Let me get my pen and paper out here. Okay. I will write down Mallie 2025. All right. You think you got 5 in you? That's what she said.
Well, I did. Yeah. God, I hope not. Well, my predictions kind of were similar to yours and Jess, and also Marky Mark. I said that unfortunately I predict another attempt on Trump's life.
Okay. So attempt on Trump.
And then I said something big with aliens, like they're making their presence known, not like Signs, where it was like really bad, the movie Signs, but kind of like there's going to be some big event, kind of like what happened, was it Florida, where people were saying there was aliens in that mall?
Okay. So,
but something like that where it's going to be newsworthy, like there's going to be a lot of a lot of people seeing it where it's not really questioned. It's gonna be like, here I am.
Okay, so kind of out in the open, kind of like
Yeah.
okay, oh, okay, so like so the so would it be like a mistaken thing? Like they're like out in the open and they're like, oh shit, we're here, like
I
like
don't know.
they get-
Or I what came to my mind was kind of like, well, once again, the movie Signs, when they were showing that birthday party and it was like in Mexico, and then you see the alien walking by, like they have video on it.
okay,
Something like that where we catch it.
so kind of like the Las Vegas backyard type deal.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Okay,
But more where you're not questioning it as much. You know what I mean? That there's more footage.
okay, gotcha. Okay, all
So
right.
I thought that. And then I thought with all this AI stuff, whatever, that people are getting a little bit starting to feel out of touch with technology and stuff, and seeing going back to the basics, because you always see on social media everyone's showing those videos, like the school videos of the 1980s where there's no phones involved and everyone's smiling and talking and stuff, and I feel like we're going to go retro a little bit.
So AI backlash, huh?
Yeah, that we're going to do things different, or start to, or it's going to be like a trend. Like this year it was that trend of, I think it was called not Crazy Christmas. What was it? Something Christmas, but it was basically how we all grew up decorating our Christmas trees.
Oh
But
yeah,
that was like the trend this year. But I just think it's going to be less technology trend.
less tech. All right. Okay.
And then I thought, um, Lions win the Super Bowl.
Oh, look at you going for the slam dunk. Okay.
And then my last one was kind of like a major religious event, kind of like where, back in the day, the girls saw the Virgin Mary, like had some big, I don't know, there's going to be like some big religious thing where maybe we start to question things again. Because I feel like we've kind of stepped away from going to church, and I don't know, there's going to be some big religious event. I don't
Okay.
know what it is, but something significant.
Excellent. All right. Those are good. Those are good. Excellent. So that's Mallie's five for 2025. There you go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So then we'll reflect in 2026.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll see where if any of our stuff came to fruition.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. Those are all very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Now watch the Chiefs end up winning the Super Bowl again.
I know, freaking A, they need to go.
And then,
Someone needs, God forbid, someone needs to get injured.
you know what I almost said? I almost, although I can see it happening, I don't think it will. I was going to say Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Kelsey retires, and he pops a question at Taylor Swift.
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I almost said that, but then I thought it's too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I and now that I've spoken into existence, it'll happen. You can mark that one
Like,
down
do you
as a
think she'll become pregnant first and then they get married? Or do you think,
no, no,
okay.
no, no. She's too calculated with her career.
Yeah.
Although I do think if they get married, that there's kids in the future. But she'll
Sooner than later.
no, no,
Oh,
no. It'll be calculated. Um, but she'll take a set time off. Like the career will start to wind down a little bit before she
right.
have kids. It'll be a little bit later. I mean, what she's already in her mid 30s, isn't she? Or late 30s?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think late 30s, isn't she?
Oh yeah, it'll be coming up here probably in the next couple of years. But um,
What if she gets a surrogate? A lot of
yeah,
those
that's
famous people get surrogates.
that's true. I gotta think it's got to be happening soon. But I mean, she's been on such a hot streak lately that you can't,
Yeah.
you know, you can't
Yeah.
really
So,
take time.
yeah, make that money while you can.
That's right. And boy, is she making money. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't. I mean, what the Eras tour brought in so much money.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't put it all down right now.
Right.
So, you gotta. That's
Unless she does something stupid. I don't know.
you know
Like,
I don't.
I just don't like how they share their political beliefs. You know what I mean? We're almost influencing
But it didn't hurt her.
their fans.
Yeah, it didn't hurt her in this election, though. You know, I mean, she came out and she backed Kamala. It didn't hurt her.
Yeah, true.
You know, and it really hasn't. Speaking of, holy cow. Okay, you talk about things hurting people.
Yeah.
Did you see what happened last night on Raw in L.A.?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so I mean, we're not a political show, right?
Right.
But since we're in this vein, I'll talk about it briefly. Hulk Hogan got booed out of the building in LA last night. I was shocked
Uh-huh.
because I mean, you know, he had been in lockstep with President Trump.
Okay.
But
That's why he was booed?
no, but yeah, they're in a very liberal city in LA last night.
Right.
It was the first edition of Raw on Netflix.
Okay.
So I mean, first edition, they go worldwide. But I think it was a major misstep by WWE. Although you could argue it was the office's way of maybe taking Hogan down a peg
Mm-hmm.
because he wasn't popular with the boys backstage. He had said some racist stuff that,
Right.
yeah, that wasn't cool with some of the boys backstage. So I think they maybe did it to take Hogan down a peg. That's just speculation on my part.
Mm-hmm.
But he got booed. I mean, we're talking probably out of the 17,000 that were there, probably 10,000 booed him.
Wow.
It was huge. It was a huge reaction. Now, had Hogan been in any other part of the country, and sincerely, had he been in any other part of the country, he gets a huge pop because it's Hulk Hogan, right?
Right.
And I mean, Jimmy Hart was in front of him, his manager. He's waving the American flag. He's promoting his beer, real American beer. It's a part of the show where it's kind of a self-serving pat on the back.
Right.
It's WWE. You know, we're on Netflix. He does the thing where he tears his shirt and there's another shirt underneath. And, you know, he's struggling to tear his shirt because he's 70 years old.
Right.
That deal. But he's tearing the shirt and there's a shirt underneath that says, Raw is Netflix, right?
Uh-huh.
So he's promoting the deal. But boy, you could barely hear him over the boos.
Because I know they booed him like when he turned to be a bad guy,
Yeah,
but this was a different kind of boo.
that's 30 years ago. I mean, but no, this is a different kind of boo.
Ah.
But that's an example of audience, timing, bad timing at that,
Mm-hmm.
and being tone deaf, right?
Yeah.
But Taylor's at a point right now where she's untouchable. So, you know, she can make certain moves and not have to worry about that. Now, let her career cool down a little bit and she won't be able to do what she did as far as backing a political candidate.
Right.
Right now, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
I think she could back a rock for president, not the rock, but a rock
Yeah.
president.
Well, he got into trouble too for supporting to bring politics into his career.
Yeah. And honestly, I think he could run for president and probably win.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. But you know, I mean, I mean, the Undertaker got in trouble with some people for spouting his political views on his podcast.
Oh, I always believe just keep the things separate, just like with religion.
Right.
You just keep that
Right.
stuff separate.
Keep it separate. Keep it out, you know.
Yeah.
So, but, and that's the thing. When you're a celebrity known for one thing, well, you know what? I forget who it was, which political pundit said it, but, you know, just dribble the ball, stupid. Well, okay. Although you don't want to be known just for one thing, you want to be known for multifaceted parts of your personality. Okay, I get it. You want to be a well-rounded person, but people don't really want to know your political affiliations.
Yep.
You can be a well-rounded person and not have to state your political belief.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can be a well-rounded person and not have to tell people about your religion.
Yeah. Yep.
That's just the way things are, you know? So, That is what it is. Let's get into different stories here. We got a few stories left on the program today. And we are running short on time here. Tell you what, there's a mystery fog sparking conspiracy theory as it sweeps across the U.S. Residents across multiple states have reported strange clouds of fog with a chemical-like smell. That's weird. Including right here in Minnesota. Yikes. Something strange is in your neighborhood, and we're not calling Ghostbusters. We'll just put it that way. It's been hanging in the air over the last few days. That is, at least according to a swath of reports of a peculiar fog with seemingly unusual properties that's been cited in multiple U.S. states, including parts of Texas, Wisconsin, Iowa, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, Florida, and Minnesota. Some witnesses complained that the fog had triggered respiratory symptoms and was accompanied by a burning chemical-like smell that left them feeling nauseous. Within about an hour, I kept sneezing over and over for about 3 hours, and my eyes were really puffy, said one woman who encountered the fog while filling her car with gas in Florida. I got very warm and I felt like I had a fever and my stomach was cramping. Similar experiences were reported in California and Kansas. Here in Southern California, unusual fog the last few days, wrote one resident. Strange smells, and I've been noticing the smell for months now. It burns my nose. Seems like an all-out assault from the skies the last few days. The phenomena quickly went viral on social media, with thousands of users suggesting that the fog could be something sinister, such as a secret government experiment. Incredibly, something like this actually did happen in the 1950s when a project known as Operation Sea Spray saw large amounts of bacteria being intentionally sprayed over the San Francisco area to determine how vulnerable U.S. cities were to biological weapons. That being said, it's extremely unlikely that anything like that is going on here. Instead, in all likelihood, the fog is little more than a natural phenomena that has been blown out of proportion by the propagation of conspiracy theories on social media. Not good at all. There's a viral video out there showing figures standing on top of clouds, or does it? The peculiar phenomena has been generating some heated debate on social media over the last week. Reportedly captured on camera by passengers aboard a commercial airliner, the intriguing footage appears to be showing human-like figures standing on top of clouds. The figures, which remain motionless, stand out distinctly against the rest of the cloud layer and cast their own shadows, suggesting that there's actually something physically there. The clip quickly racked up millions of views on social media, with users speculating over what exactly the passenger had captured on camera and whether the entire thing could be a hoax. There's a video as well. I tell you what, I'll post it on the description of this program. You could take a look at it for yourself and decide for yourself as well. I tell you what, because we are a little short on time as well, there's an article about the largest ever study on ayahuasca, revealing its potential to boost mental health and well-being. It's an extremely interesting article. I tell you what, I'm going to hold it over for next week because there's a little bit to get into about this article and what it does exactly for ADHD and how it affects ADHD and how it tests out for adults. And I want to get into it, but I want to be able to spend some time with it and talk to you guys about it. So we'll talk about it next week. There's a major new dinosaur footprint fossil that was discovered in England this past week. Over 200 fossilized dinosaur footprints were found crisscrossing a limestone quarry in Oxfordshire. Something very large walked across a shallow lagoon what is now a limestone quarry in modern-day Oxfordshire, England, some 166 million years ago. The discovery, which was made during routine excavation work, is believed to be the largest dinosaur footprint site ever found in the UK and is one of the largest such sites anywhere in the world. The 200 footprints, which are comprised of multiple crisscrossing sites or sets of tracks, were left by two types of dinosaur, a long-necked sauropod known as the Cetiosaurus and a smaller meat eater known as the Megalosaurus. So far, the tracks have been found stretching over 150 meters, but because only a small section of the area has actually been excavated, it's possible that there could be a lot more of them, and we'll keep you updated as we find out more about those tracks. All right, and finally, Mallie, 30 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow's World predicted 2025, and here's how it did. This is according to the BBC. In 1995, again, 30 years ago, it seemed like 1995 was 30 years ago. The Tomorrow's World program predicted what the world would look like 30 years ago in 2020, or 30 years later, rather, in 2025. The show, which is no longer broadcast, featured one of the most famous scientists of the age, which was Professor Stephen Hawking, who predicted by 2025 we can expect big changes, one of which being Professor Stephen Hawking is no longer here.
Right.
To be that literal, but that's the way it is. The program team agreed, suggesting a raft of world-shaking innovations from hologram surgery to space junk gel.
Space junk gel.
Yeah. So with the help of some experts and the benefit of 3 decades of hindsight, let's take a quick look at what today's world should successfully be. In 1995, the World Wide Web was really taking off. The development tomorrow's world thought would bring future trouble. They predicted business barons and banks would take control of the internet by 2000. Not quite. Establishing a supernet, which they would restrict access to. As far as I know, we all can still jump onto it. So we're
right.
That in turn would prompt hacks, viruses, and even riots. We do have hacks. We do have viruses. Riots are few and far between. Verdict, the internet has remained mostly open, and there have been no riots. There's little doubt the action of hackers is still out there. Okay, so asteroid mining and space junk gel. Let's explain that. The program speculated space mining would become a lucrative industry and companies excavating asteroids near Earth for precious metals. The show also suggested space junk would become such a problem it would not be safe for astronauts. The answer, a gigantic foam gel to slow down debris. Well, there's no super foam gel. The problem of space junk is an acute one. There's no special mining industry. That could change. We pretty much know the answer there. Super surgeons and their robots. Well, we're a little closer to this one than you may think. Tomorrow's World predicted by 2004, a law would be passed for all UK hospitals to publish a league table of surgeon success rates. The top surgeons would become so popular and so well paid, it would make no sense for them to travel to patients. Instead, patient holograms would be sent to them, and the surgeon would operate using spatial gloves. Not special, but spatial. At the patient's end, a robot would perfectly mimic the movements of the surgeon. So these gloves would move, and then the robot would do the surgery according to what the gloves would do.
Okay.
So you could work from home if you were a surgeon. The verdict, they didn't get it exactly right, but robots are helping with surgery. So they kind of got that right. A smart speaker with a floating head was the next one. The program featured a man of the future wearing a fetching VR headset, his wife and a young girl in what appeared to be a modern-day London. In one section, the floating head of a woman comes out of a smart speaker to tell the man that it's been a year since his holiday to Indo-Disney. She encourages him to take another holiday via a shuttle to Bangalore, which would take only 40 minutes. The verdict, ultra-fast travel feels as far away as ever, but holograms, smart speakers, and VR headsets are becoming ever more prevalent. So they kind of got that right. Banking using a microchip in your arm. Not quite. Elsewhere in the program, we got a vision of future banking. It featured a woman going to a bank complaining there were no humans and then withdrawing 100 euro marks. The bank giving her the money after scanning a chip in her arm. It hasn't gotten to that point yet. We'll just put it. That's about as far as we will take it for today. They speculate a little bit about what the world may look like in 2055. I don't think that they're going to swing as accurately as they did in 2025, but you get an idea of how far they thought 30 years would take us. If you had to swing wild for 30 years from now with one prediction, Mallie, what do you think in 30 years it may look like?
George Jetson, kind of cars floating in the air.
You still think floating cars? Yeah, I thought by 2025 we'd be in floating cars. When I was even in 1980, I thought we'd be in floating cars in 2025, and I was so wrong. It really hasn't. If you think about it, it really hasn't changed in 40.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah. So I would think in 30 years, the only thing that will change, I'll say, is I'll give you one thing that will change, and it will be communication. The way that you and I are communicating right now, I'll be able to reach out and touch you.
Like through the screen?
Through the screen. It'll be a hologram communication.
Oh, okay.
So in other words, if you have a loved one that's dying on the other side of the continent, the other side of the earth, from continent to continent, I'll be able to reach out and touch you or reach out and hug you. The feeling of real touch. I think that's the only thing that will change in 30 more years. That's it.
Right. No,
So
that's a nice one though. That's a nice prediction.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that'll change. So All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. That's how we end today's show. If you have a story you'd like to submit to us, tim@darknessradio.com. If you have a Parashare for us, tim@darknessradio.com. We'd like to hear your real life experience, whether it be with ghosts, aliens, or with cryptids. Mallie, what you got going on in the world of Paranormal Girl?
Just check out paranormalgirl.com. Check out the merch.
All right, sounds good. Tomorrow on the big show, we are going deep within the psychic mind. As a matter of fact, our guest tomorrow is Amy Robeson, and we'll be talking to her about her different psychic experiences, not only with the psychic mind and psychic experiences, but there's a twist, and I'll tell you what that twist is tomorrow. It's very interesting. I'll just put it that way. I got to say something for the show, man.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a twist to her story, and we'll tell you what that is tomorrow. So
very cool.
Not just your average psychic show. So we'll put it that way. So that'll do it for today. From Mallie Fox, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for listening to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio.
For more audio and video archives of the show, intriguing content, and cool swag, check out darknessradioshow.com. Thank you for watching, and join us tomorrow for accessing the Akashic Records, your DNA, and learning light language with Amy Robeson.